In response to one of the bigger music news announcements of the week we recorded this, A24 have commissioned for the 40th anniversary of Jonathan Demme's incredible concert film, Stop Making Sense, documenting a number of the shows from the Talking Heads Speaking in Tongues tour in 1983. That is, of course, one of the most legendary concert films of all time, has a legendary soundtrack of 16 songs.
Favorite movie of all three of us, I think.
It's like top five for me. And so A24 have commissioned a covers album, essentially where all the songs in that soundtrack will be covered by different artists. We got, along with this announcement, we got the release of a cover of Burning Down the House by Paramore and the announcement of the artists who would be covering on this record, although we don't know who's covering what yet. That will be really interesting to find out. But
Hmm.
the thing was about this announcement is that the overwhelming response to it was one of, really? Like, these were the best you could get for these
Half of them
incredibly.
Who the
seem
fuck is Girl in Red?
half
Who
of
is
these
that?
picks seem interesting, and the other half of them seem like I will forget they happen as soon as I listen to them.
Yeah, regardless of whether you fall on this, I think the overwhelming takeaway was like, we couldn't stop thinking about how this could be better. You know what I mean? Like, who would
Hmm.
we pick to, if this concept had to happen, a Stop Making Sense covers album, who would we commission to cover each of the 16 songs and why? And of course, there's different styles of cover as well. You might want a band to cover it really, really faithfully. So it's going to be a band that's going to be able to do that, be able to match up to the incredible ferocious muscle and vocal dexterity and insane tempos of these hit songs. Or it might be an artist you think could really reimagine the song in a dramatically different way that you think would work too. So we're going to go through each of the songs on the Stop Making Sense soundtrack, and each of the three of us have picked an artist who we would commission to cover that song, and where appropriate as well, why we would pick them for that song in particular, how we would envision that going. We have not shared our lists with each other. We do not know what the other people have picked for these covers, so it's a real reaction on our part as well. I didn't really set any formal rules for this, so if you happen to pick an artist who, a band that's no longer around or an artist who's deceased, that's fine. I may or may not have done that with a couple of picks on my list. But I suppose it's more spirited to say, like, here's like practically what I would have had it look like, in terms of bands that are around and available. But we've taken some liberties here. I certainly have. I can't say that for you two, but we'll find out, I'm sure. So, with all that said and done, let's have some fun. It's just an exercise, and who we would fan cast for this A24 Stop Making Sense covers album. So we're going to walk through the track list now. Track one, of course, if you've seen Stop Making Sense, if you heard the album, you know that it starts with an iconic acoustic, or barely even acoustic, like a real stripped back rendition of the legendary Talking Heads classic Psycho Killer. So let's go Jake, Morgan, Riley order with this. Who would you pick to lead off this compilation and cover Psycho Killer?
Okay, so a lot of my picks are deeply contextual, as I'm sure most of ours are, but I wanted to balance this out with things that I feel like would be a good cover for this song in question, and also something that is like quintessentially me in terms of what I would pick. So naturally, I'm going to have a couple of picks on here that are probably going to have people groan and people be like, that's so silly. I don't care. The I like all my picks, but one of my favorite picks is for Psycho Killer. One that's a pick that's I think is so good. There is a distinct possibility that Riley also did this. But
I'll be
how could I
amazed if
not?
we pick the same artist for this.
Okay, then I'm probably going to say no because this is like at least when you like look at things, I feel like from a macro perspective, this is a really really obvious pick. At least for people who pay attention to this. But my first pick for Psycho Killer, I want model actress to cover Psycho Killer so fucking bad. I want this turned into a gothy dance punk weird anxious, groovy shit. I want them to lay it on thick. I want it to be dark, and I want this to get people to fucking move and, lay on that Jamie Stewartish affectation and whatnot and just make those bass tones fucking growl, baby. It's a perfect melding of, like, subject material and, like, I'm sure that you could probably pick a song that model actors have done so far and be like, yeah, this is their Psycho Killer, just because there's so much stylistic overlap. Had to do it. Had to do it.
Very good. Morgan, your pick.
It is very funny that you mentioned Jamie Stewart just now, because my pick for a cover of Psycho Killer is Shoo Shoo.
Genius.
Mostly because I have absolutely no idea what they would do with it, and I would like to hear it.
Oh, right. You're so right.
Morgan, my pick
Lol.
is also Shoo Shoo.
Holy
Fucking
shit.
lol.
Dude, we share the same brain. You two pick Shoo Shoo, and I pick Shoo Shoo for queer
Mao.
people who are younger. Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
it's because I can hear it, right? Psycho Killer, qu'est-ce que c'est?
Qu'est-ce que c'est?
Yeah, 100%. It was not even like this was the first artist I thought of too, and that's not true for all my picks. Some of these I like slaved over and changed, but Psycho Killer felt like a shoe-in. Like it had to be Shoo Shoo. I feel like it's already happened
with
in a weird way.
XIU in shoe in. I had this. I Googled it to make sure that this didn't already exist in some format.
I mean, it feels like we live in a world that should have, like, I can hear this happening, and it would be like a stripped back, like, chamber music cover where he gets really melodramatic about it. Like, oh, that would be so good. It would be so good.
Well, this is the thing is that Shoo Shoo are obviously well known for being a covers band. We reviewed one of their covers albums in
A
2021.
good covers album.
And they have the ability to be funky as hell. Like they have a great rhythmic sensibility. They have, so they're really, it would not be a stretch for them to cover this song at all. And I think they do a great job of it. So we're off to an incredible
It may
start.
not be funky at all. Knowing them.
We're off to an incredible start.
Amazing.
All right, let's go to track
Love
2.
this.
Which is, of course, Heaven, the legendary ballad. This is notable because it's really one of the biggest outliers on Stop Making Sense. It doesn't have any like percussive element in this performance. It's very drawn back. It's low key. It's mainly just David Byrne and Tina Weymouth, really. So who would you guys pick to cover Heaven? A little bit more, I suppose, wiggle room here, maybe, or maybe less, depending on how you look at it. But Jake, who would you pick?
My pick here is somewhat out of left field, though I do have justification for it, and also is such a quintessentially podcore artist that there is, yet again, a very distinct chance that one of you has also done this, but maybe not. But one thing I feel like goes undervalued in the Talking Heads catalog is that, if not outright, they dabble a lot in country music. Not like explicitly, but I feel like you can find a handful of songs where you're just like, yeah, no, this definitely has that vibe. So why not take that approach and, bend it to one of the more malleable songs on the album? And, when I think about Heaven, other than how well written of a song it is, I think of the vocal harmonies. I think of, the performance in the chorus between David Byrne and Tina Weymouth. And it's like, okay, I need somebody who's rustic enough to channel what I'm going for here, but also a male female duet sort of harmony dynamic. So I went with Jason Isbell and Amanda Shires. I think they would fucking destroy this. It would be an amazing cover, and it would be like wholly transformative too, but in a way that still feels honest to the tone of the original.
Yeah, great, very on brand. Morgan.
So there's something about the way that Byrne sings this that really draws me to wanting to hear this artist cover it. And that I have written down Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, but I mean, it essentially could be just Nick Cave and a piano. That's how I imagine it anyways, a sort of Boatman's Call-esque
Perfect
take on it.
Yeah, I can't fault that at all. It's one of those things where it's like I didn't think of that when thinking about this, but in retrospect, it feels obvious. My pick, I've also gone for a duet like you, Jake. I've considered that angle, and I've gone for a male-female duet, although this is not a pair of artists who have duetted together before. I would love to hear them duet together. And I think that if they did have a song like this, it would be particularly well attuned to their sensibilities. So my pick is Father John Misty and Angel Olsen.
Ooh, that's an
Oh,
amazing choice. Those
I just
harmonies would
felt
be amazing.
I just felt things in my insides.
Yeah, I think Father John Misty, especially with his kind of torch singer direction that headed in with his last album, he has a really rich voice. I think he would add a completely different tone, but a really fitting tone for this song. And then Angel Olsen just has like it's just would do the perfect harmonies, I think. So it was the Father John Misty thing came first, but then I was thinking about, okay, who would I add in to make this a duet? And just Angel Olsen felt right. So maybe they could even like exchange do it make it a proper duet where like one does the first part and then the second one does the second verse, you know what I mean? So that would be my pick. All right, track 3. Again, in the context of the movie, the band have kind of slowly begun to assemble, and we're starting to get into the more energetic tracks now. We've got Thank You for Sending Me an Angel, of course, the opening track on their second album. Jake, what have you picked for Thank You for Sending Me an Angel?
To me, this is probably one of the less essential cuts on this album. Just like not even necessarily like lesser that I don't like, but just, it's surrounded by pretty fucking monumental songs. And this is a relatively short one too. So I wanted to find somebody who could capitalize on this and sort of, make it their own, but maybe make it a little bit more high impact, really drive that sort of sense of tautness and just like, tight lyrical construction or whatever. And just in the way that it's delivered, I feel like you could retrofit this into like a really banging, slamming pop punk song. So for this, I went with Pup because I think that they like I want somebody with enough edge to put some real grit into it. I want them in like full on, full blown meltdown mode where they're basically channeling thrash metal to just take this and right off into the fucking sunset with it. I think it would be a really unconventional choice, sure, but it showcases the versatility of Talking Heads' tunes quite well, and it would just be a load of fucking fun.
Very good. Morgan, what are your thoughts?
I went pretty straightforward with this one. Um, this feels suited to me like a big Wilco live cut. So, you know,
Ooh.
I think Jeff Tweedy would bring a real kind of like restrained tastefulness to the way he sings this. I definitely was thinking about this much more along Jake's lines. Like to me, immediately I thought of pop punk and honestly more even ska punk with this song because to me the drums
yeah,
and just
the
the
march
energy
of
of
it.
it is much more ska to me. So I thought, okay, well, who makes sense here? And of course, I went to Jeff Rosenstock,
Jeff Rosenstock.
which,
Yep.
this is very much a psycho killer situation as well, because, model actress is to Shoo Shoo as Jeff Rosenstock is to Pup, they're in the same
Yep.
kind of artist. So, Jake and I are kind of functionally hive minding here again. I think Jeff would bring a lot of character and fun to this as well. I think he would make it like 2 times as fast as it already is, which would make it even funnier. Um, yeah, and I think he would add like he would go full ska with it as well, and he would add breakdowns and ridiculously fried horns and shit, and I think it would be hilarious. And a perfect counterpoint as well after the Torch song second track. So yeah, that's my pick. Track 4, Found a Job. Jake, we're still on the songs from Buildings and Food. That's not what the album's called, but let's go with that. We're still in that era of the band, picking up the pace a
Mhm.
little more. Jake, who have you picked for Found a Job?
This is one of the most difficult ones just because it's one of the tunes on here that again feels like it has the most potential to be changed. So I wanted to pick somebody who would, but I also wanted like I needed to recognize specific elements of this song that I knew other bands could capitalize on. And to me, the sort of marching rhythm combined with the guitar in this song it gave me some real heavy vibes for one band in particular. And I kind of cheated just because I have a tie here, but they're two bands that are led by the same person. And I don't know which one of them I would prefer. But for this, I went with the Strokes slash the Voids. Mainly because the Strokes would just make it into a really banging rock song, like a really cool sort of, indie garage, or, maybe they'll include some of the more electronic and synth elements of their most recent. I could see that totally working. But the Voids is my pick if you just want to get real fucking strange with it. Like if you just want to make this really languorous, really big, or really blown out and psychedelic, hell yeah, man, fucking go for it. Either way, I'm cool with it.
Nice. Morgan.
This is the point where I sort of struggled a little bit to find an artist that would fit, and as such went way outside of the box.
Ooh.
My pick for this is New York mathcore gent-esque band Car Bomb. A band who has
Whoa.
um an extremely, heavy rhythmic focus. And this song's so rhythmically interesting and propulsive that I just think a band with serious muscle could do some really interesting things with it.
That gent angle would really work for this. I feel that.
So when I was thinking about this, I think this is like it's a very tense song, this one. It rides this kind of like rhythmic tension. It's like a high wire act basically. And then the chorus is essentially just when the tension breaks and David Byrne sings a line that doesn't sound like he's kind of in his throat. So I was thinking about, okay, so this needs to be sung by someone or performed by a band that are a little bit off kilter generally, who are used to the kind of weirdness that this song is performed with, I think. And so my pick is Sparks. I think they would knock this out of the park.
Ooh,
I think that the Mail
I
Brothers
like that.
already make songs that have the kind of tension and off kilter feel that this has. So I think they'd be really, really good for it. I think especially, Jake and I talked about their new album last year. I think that they're so energized. They're in such a creatively good part of their, career at this point that they could absolutely slay this. Um, I've got other picks where it's like I imagine a particular era of a band doing this, but Sparks, I think, could nail this at any point in their history. So yeah, we've actually gone here with three picks. I would say that couldn't be more different, which is nice after copying each other so much on
But
those
I can
picks.
see all of them. I can
Yeah.
see all of them. I want all of them to exist.
Next up, we have one of my favorite songs on on the live album, but I was going to say on Speaking in Tongues, which is Slippery People. Jake, who have you picked to cover Slippery People?
Now, look, I got two entries on this list where the band in question I picked, I would be absolutely fucking floored if at least one of you didn't have either of these two bands. Like, I think this is like guaranteed considering what we're talking about here. And as a result, I don't really feel like I need to say that much with this one, but like LCD sound system, anybody? Because
Fuck's
frankly,
sake.
makes a whole lot of fucking sense. And I know that that might even be like a real softball pick, but like even just Burns' delivery on here, as well as what he's talking about, is that this feels like a proto LCD sound system song. So if you have this and you can kind of again retrofit it with their sound and just kind of keep it, adhering to the same structure, I just feel like that's a recipe for success and just a song that will somehow be even more dance inclined than before.
My pick is that for that exact reason.
I I
Yes.
I actually didn't pick LCD Sound System for this project. I don't know. It was like, and part of that
Interesting.
was they were so appropriate. I couldn't decide what song they should do. And so I'm like, you know what, fuck it.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna put them on here because I knew Jake, you've been listening to them, so I'm like, Jake will definitely put them on there somewhere. So I'm not even gonna
Yeah.
bother. This is one of the ones where I've kind of imagined it. I've done a little bit of a Morgan here with Found a Job, where I've kind of just taken it in a different direction entirely. And I've gone with I'm not like fully confident in this one. It's not one of my favorite picks, but I still think it'll kick ass. I go with System of a Down for this, just because
Dude,
something
dude,
there's something about the vocal inflections on this song
hell yeah,
that I
bro.
think Serge Tankian and Darren Malakian together would absolutely kill, especially trading off. I love the song to pieces. It's I love the ridiculous roller coaster melody that it has from the bottom to the top, and I just think that Serge Tankian would kill that. And also just,
That's
you
so
know,
system
in
coded.
that car
What the
bomb
fuck?
vein, just the idea of a full-on metal um Talking Heads cover is just irresistible. They're not, spoiler, they're not the only metal band I've picked today. So there's something about that that just is deeply amusing to me, but I also think they would be able to pull it off because I think that there's no way System of a Down don't love Talking Heads. Any rock or metal band that has a strong
So
rhythmic
true.
focus is studying those texts, right? So yeah, I went with them for this.
Good job.
All right, we get into the first big showstopper song, which is, of course, Burning Down the House. Uh, a lot of pressure on this. Whoever has to cover this one. I mean, Paramore did a good job with their version. And it maybe wouldn't be the song I would have picked for them, but I appreciate them giving it their all. So there's a lot of pressure on this pick. This was a tough one for me, I'm sure, probably for you guys as well. But Jake, what did you go for? Who would you recruit to cover the Titanic burning down the house?
This was one where I had to come back retroactively and pick something that I thought of better because I kind of had a placeholder band at this spot and then swapped them for something. And then as a result, this was the hardest one for me, the one I thought the longest on. And I was like, okay, we got to look at this contextually. Burning down the house. This is, I mean, you get what it says on the tin. This is something that you need to be a rager. This needs to be high impact. This needs to be heavy, but it also needs to make you fucking dance. It's got to be catchy as hell and it's got to be hard. And what better choice could I go with than Viet Cong slash preoccupations? I
Oh
I
wow.
mean, they would wreck this shit, man. It would be a total fucking barn burner. And that's all my justification. Like, that's like after listening to their last album, I was just like, you know what? These guys have a more flexible sound than I initially gave them credit for. And you don't even really need that flexibility for this. This is just go right for the fucking throat, make it loud, make it big, fucking lay it on thick with those drums, baby.
Very interesting. I wouldn't have thought of them, but I'm imagining it now, and I think you might be right. Morgan, what did you go with?
My pick is another that I selected because I tried to do this with all of the like really big songs, and pick artists that are like feel really spiritually indebted to Talking Heads, but also they would approach this material in a way that's like, I just have no idea what you would do with this, but I want to hear it. And my pick for that is none other than the Mars Volta, because I know it would break my spine more than likely.
I did think about, I can't even remember what song it was, but I did think about at the drive-in for one of these as well. So, it feels like, yeah, of course we would think of them. Of course we'd think of Cedric and Omar. That would be
And it
crazy.
looks like another one of us did.
Hey, look, we will
We
see.
gotta, if we ever do this again, we have to tell each other what we picked.
No, 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 definitely
I,
not.
I
This is
like
the
this.
best way to do it. This is absolutely the best
Actually,
way to do
wait.
it.
I want to capitalize on this. I do have the Mars Volta. Can either of you guess as which song? You
Well,
get one guess.
if we do, you can't tell us if we're right or wrong. We have to wait and find
Okay,
out.
okay, okay.
Um, I will guess that you picked the Mars Volta for. I mean, I guess you picked them for Swamp.
Okay, okay.
I guess cross-eyed and painless.
All right, all right.
Okay. But anyway, my pick for Burning Down the House, I've gone more Jake core than Jake here. This was another artist who was like, I knew pretty quickly I wanted them to be on here. And I was like, just a matter of which song they would be best suited for. And I thought, you know what, fuck it, let's give them this big kahuna because I think they would crush it. So I picked Genesis Owusu for Burning Down the House.
Ooh, fuck,
Oh.
that would. Oh man, I'm upset that's not real now.
Just
Shit.
full band with him doing his thing. I think that would be amazing. I think he could pull it off, frankly.
Absolutely.
So that's my pick for Burning Down the House. We've got another heavy hitter right after it, though. Life During Wartime. Jake, what have you picked for this absolute beast of a song?
This is the song that I had to replay the most. I think I might have spent the most time just sort of wondering in the moment, at least, what this one was going to be. And I have a slightly adventurous pick and one that I think that is some people just be kind of like, whatever. But I feel like with this, trying to stick close to the original or like replicate the vibe is just kind of a fool's errand, frankly, unless you can pick of somebody who's just like fits like a glove so perfectly that you just can't deny it. So maybe something a little bit more transformative, but also I feel like this would be particularly cheeky considering one of the lyrics. But my choice for Life During Wartime, also, it's technically two artists because as we kind of discussed beforehand, Stop Making Sense as an album and as like a project is to celebrate the idea of the band and like multiple performances coalescing with one another and building off each other. So we wanted to stay away from like solo artists who don't have like a backing band or whatever. But I couldn't not do this where I would say I think that this should be turned up to a straight up sophistopop disco song with Jessie Ware, and the backing band should be Bad Bad Not Good.
They are already in one of the featured artists on the real compilation.
Yes.
But
I mean,
pairing
and just
them with Jessie Ware is just an absolutely inspired thought.
and you get to hear her do the "This ain't no party, this ain't no disco,"
Yeah,
except it is
I
a
could hear it.
disco.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that again, in retrospect, I didn't think of it, but that does feel obvious. Very good, very interesting pick. Morgan, what did you go with?
This one's a little more, yeah, I mean, it could be called on the nose, but I went with a band that is so like transparently indebted to Talking Heads and went with Parquet Courts for Life During Wartime, mostly because I just think they could bring the energy that's in particular
Yes.
in this live version.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great pick. I'm kind of annoyed I didn't even consider them for this because you're absolutely right. They would do that. This is again another pick where it was like the band came first before I recognized the song, although I very quickly gave them this song. My pick is Black Midi for this song. I
Yeah.
think that they would absolutely crush this.
It's a good choice.
Think that it's very vocally demanding, even for a Talking Head song, and I think that Geordie Greek would go nutty with it. Also, I specifically want to hear this song with the keyboard solo in this song, which is just kind of fucking insane. I want to hear that
Yes.
transposed to guitar performed by Geordie Greek as well. Like that specifically,
Fuck yeah.
I heard that in my head. I was like, this has to happen. So Black Midi is my pick for Life During Wartime. I think that would be amazing. Next up, we have another Speaking in Tongues deep cut, Making Flippy Floppy. Jake, what did you go for with this one?
I have no idea what anyone's gonna make of this pick, but to me, it was a band that once I thought about including them, I knew I had to. I just didn't know where. Partially because I love this band, and also because I've seen what they've done with covers of classic songs in the past and how wholly transformative they are. So I feel like that this song in particular, though, you could kind of ride a balance of being both transformative and still like honestly adhering to the structure of the song, except making everything a little bit weirder. Because one of the things that stuck out to me the most on this is just again the rhythms, the drums on here. And what better thing to do than to turn this into a fucking psychedelic pop rager and give it to Animal Collective, where I get to hear Avi Tear on drums, where I get to hear them screeching out the fucking lyrical refrains. This shit would be wild and whack completely in keeping with what the song is doing, but it would sound so totally different from the original product that I feel like it was just absolute necessity here. It's a left field pick, but with them being a bit more straight laced with their more recent efforts, I feel like they could bring some of that to here, but also channel some of their old unpredictability and make a perfect synthesis, shall we say.
Yeah, I did think about Animal Collective very briefly, and this was one of the handful of songs I considered them for. So I completely feel you on this. I think it would be very fun to see them do that. I think it would be fun to see them do it like in like sort of sung-tongsy sort of freak folk era in particular.
Yes.
But just whatever their take would be on it, I'm sure I would love that. Morgan.
My reasoning for this is very simple. It's sort of a, a silly, funny song. So I went with the silly, funny duo of Silk Sonic. Because instrumentally, I
Ooh,
think that would fit really well. And I think Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak would bring a lot of performative charisma to it.
I
Yeah, that's
love
great.
that.
I actually almost picked them for Take Me to the River. Um,
Yeah.
but
Ooh,
I went in a bit of a weirder direction with that one, as I'll get to. But I did think about them too. That would be so sick. I've gone with
great choice.
a little bit more of an unconventional pick here as well. This was mainly inspired by the fact that the lyrics of this song just remind me of how this person writes. And I think the way that they sing as well would be kind of well amenable. They would do it in their own style. They'd change it a bit. They'd probably make it a lot slower and more ethereal. But I've gone with Fever Ray for this. I think that their style, their performance would be
Ooh.
really, really good for this. That there's the eeriness that they have in their music, but also they do have a really good sense of rhythm and funk as well, especially on that last album we reviewed. So I think they would be a really interesting, they would provide a really, really interesting take on this as well. And I can see the lyrics in the song coming out of Karen Dreher's mouth very easily. You could even like, I know the Knife aren't a band anymore, but you could even just give it to them as well and have them do it
I
full.
was gonna say the Knife cover of Once in a Lifetime would be the dopest
Yeah,
thing in the
that
fucking
would
like
be,
you could put the Knife on basically anything here.
yeah. But also like, Karen Dreher is one of the few vocalists I think who has the willingness to be as boldly, transparently insane with their voice as David Byrne can be.
Yep.
Like they're just willing to go, yeah, 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 wow, wow, wow. They're just willing to go crazy and shit. So,
Exactly why I picked Animal Collective.
yeah. So I think we've tipped into something like that song. Although speaking of weird and goofy, Swamp is
Uh-huh.
next, which I think is, has always been like a little bit of an oddball pick on Stop Making Sense. I like it. I think that the version of it in Stop Making Sense is basically the definitive version of it because it's not one of the best songs on Speaking in Tongues, but I always really enjoy the version of it on Stop Making Sense just because of how hard David Byrne commits to it with the stomping around and the antics that he does. So I'm very curious to hear what you guys picked for this one because it's such a strange song. Jake, what was your choice here?
You had to embrace the quintessential strangeness of this, where I was like, I need somebody who can take this and make it work and it feel natural. But I also would like if maybe they were transformative enough with it to just make it a bit more, I don't want to say more of a coherent song. I like the song a lot, but it is sort of like, it's the type of thing that the way it is now, only Talking Heads can pull that off. So I would want some substantial changes here and there, but I think this is an easy pick for Eve Toomer. Make this shit as groovy, as funky, and as psychedelic as humanly fucking possible. And I feel like you would turn maybe one of the more disarming moments on the album to one of its most potentially catchy and even beguiling. It's so in keeping with their spirit as an artist. And I can just hear their weird ass vocals on this song and making it sound even weirder. And frankly, the more I talk about it, the more I talk myself into just being like, give me this. I want it. Give it to me.
Respectable pick. Morgan, what did you go with here?
Yeah, you have to sort of meet the idiosyncratic level of this song, uh, I think. And I went with the band I think would probably change it entirely. Uh, and that is uh, Chat Pile. Um,
Yo.
I have no idea what they do with it instrumentally, but I just want to hear Ray Gun Bush go.
Yeah, I can hear that. That would be something else. I hope they just make it into the kind of a God's Country song. You know what I mean? Where it's just like,
Yeah,
My safe like backup pick for this was actually going to be Primus, which I feel like would also
yeah.
be
oh,
in the exact same like boat as like a chat pile when like what
I
would they even do to this?
I had Primus for Found a Job at first before I went with
Yeah.
Sparks.
Yeah, that could work too.
But I did think of them because then it was like, and then I put Black Midi in there. It's like I can't have Black Midi and Primus. I'm chasing up the same tree there.
Yeah,
Um, I have gone with so initially, I initially I put forward the drones for this because I think Gareth Lydiard has the perfect voice for
yes.
capturing the spirit of this song, and the band could really provide muscle. And then I realized like the version of the drones that I'm imagining that would cover a song like this is just Tropical Fuckstorm, which is the band the
Yeah,
drones became after they broke up. So yeah, I went with Tropical Fuckstorm for this cover. I think that they would
good
absolutely
pick.
destroy it and maybe make it even weirder. But specifically, I can hear Gareth Lydiard singing those highs in his like
I,
distinct
I,
Australian brogue. I feel like getting anyone Australian to cover this song is kind of a safe bet because it just has that sort of kooky crocodile hunter energy to it.
Yep.
Um,
I think if Grinder Man was still around, I might have given this to them,
Yeah,
but I just
yeah.
wasn't
I Nick
Yes.
thinking
Nick
in that
Cave in
vein.
Grinderman mode would absolutely crush this. All right, so now we go to another one of my favorite deep cuts on the
Yes.
soundtrack, which is What a Day That Was. Uh, Jake, who have you picked for this? Again, another very vocally demanding song.
It's a very vocally demanding song, and you need somebody to match that performance wise. But I also, there's a lot of very specific, almost ethereal tones instrumentally in this song. And I wanted a band that could channel the bombast, the performance, the muscularity, but also balance it out with something a little bit more ephemeral. And who fucking better to do something like that than Gang of Youths? Specifically, I want you to imagine them in Angel in real time mode, specifically something like Unison, for instance. Take the sonic palette of Unison and apply it to What a Day That Was. Perfect cover. Perfect cover. I want it. Give it to me, please.
That's, yeah, I love that as a concept already,
Can't
and it's
argue with that.
a million miles away from what I envisioned. So, so props to you for that one, Morgan.
This is my favorite performance on Stop Making Sense, and sort of as a result, probably my favorite Talking Heads song. So I went with an artist that has been around even longer than Talking Heads, has invariably had some influence on Byrne and Co., and also probably has given Gabriel some, well, that gives it away, given this artist some influence over the time. But it's Peter Gabriel. Um,
Yeah.
I sort of have no
Yeah.
idea what he'd do with this um instrumentally, but I want to hear his voice on this song, and that's
Yeah,
really about as far as the pick goes.
I think he'd strip it down like quite if
Probably,
I'm
yeah.
going off
More
his
than
new
likely.
album, then he'd probably strip it down and make it sound very like lush and full and well produced, but I think he would really tone a lot of it back. As would my pick, which is again another quite unconventional one. I think would not necessarily slow the song down, but take it into a completely different genre space. And for me, the vocal performance is key here, and it's not necessarily about matching Burns' inflections. It's just about delivering the level of emotion and sort of commitment to the vocal. And I've gone with Fleet Foxes for this,
Hmm.
especially in their like
Ooh.
Helplessness Blues era, where they were like, really kind of doing these more ambitious sort of like progressive folk things. And Robin Pecknold's voice, I think, is just beautiful. Would be so well attuned to capturing the nuances of the feeling in this song. I imagine him slowing it down, kind of paring it all back, but just having those walls of acoustic guitars, just kind of pushing it all forward. And that one I came up with on the fly after we started recording because I realized I'd missed it.
Wait, hold on.
But yeah,
What song are we on?
what a day that was.
Shit.
What one were you doing?
Uh-oh.
I skipped ahead.
You know what? Let's just leave that in. And so Morgan has just shared his pick for This Must Be the Place, which
Okay.
immediately makes a lot of sense. Yeah, Peter Gabriel
Mhm.
destroy that. Uh, who did you pick
That
for
works.
What a Day That Was?
Jamiroquai.
Bro, yes.
You know what?
Yeah.
There was a brief moment where I considered like, should I get the Red Hot Chili Peppers on this somewhere as a bit? And Morgan, essentially what you've done is you've done that, but without you've done it like 15% more tastefully because you've just picked Jamiroquai instead.
With
I respect the hell out of it.
Jonathan Glazy music video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with the knowledge that Morgan's pick for This Must Be the Place was Peter Gabriel,
How did that happen? So
with
retarded.
that knowledge, um, I'll go first because mine's a bit less interesting, I think. So Jake, you'll probably almost certainly have something a little bit more bold than mine. Mine is just like the song reminds me of this band to begin with. It's a bit more of a pipe dream sort of thing because this band isn't really active anymore, I don't think. But I went with the Blue Nile for this.
Hmm.
Just
Ooh, I like that.
hearing Paul Buchanan sing David Byrne's vocal line while the Blue Nile do their kind of like late night,
Mm.
sophisti-pop vibe iteration on this song, which is already not a million miles away from that. Uh, I know I would cry buckets, and I already cry buckets because it's this must be the place. But I think the only way this song could make me cry more is if the Blue Nile were performing it in their mid '80s heyday. So Jack, who did you pick for this iconic song?
I love how you let off with your pick is definitely going to be more bold than mine when it absolutely is not. This is easily my least bold pick, the most obvious pick that this podcast could ever pick. But the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, I need the heaviest of heavy hitters to handle this song for me, and I need them to do it in a way that will both be quintessential to them and will also still be the song. And I mean it's everything. Like they were gonna have to pop up here eventually on some spot or another. And again, the world with a cover of This Must Be the Place by Everything would just be a much better world that I would like to live inside.
I do think that's a bolder pick for the song than
Oh, okay.
either of what Morgan and I picked. And I think it would be beautiful and they'd absolutely kill it. Um, I do have everything for a song we haven't covered yet, actually. So we'll get to them very soon.
Mhm.
But I didn't even consider them for this one, so that's actually really beautiful. All right. Once in a Lifetime, the big hitter from Remain in Light. Who are we going with covering? This to me was one of the hardest to pick because it's
Yes, it
such
was.
a strange and eclectic song. Jake, what did you go with?
To me, the back-to-back of This Must Be the Place of Once in a Lifetime was, this is the biggest moment on the album for me. And with everything, I kind of went with the safe choice there, just being like, I think that this band would probably cover any Talking Heads song incredibly well, so it just works, but this one in particular. So I got a little bit more adventurous with this one, even though it is a band that someone has thrown out before, and that I would love to hear what Black Midi would do with this song. Because if it's a song as big as Once in a Lifetime, I want something deeply radical. Because if you try to strive for the vibe of this song already, just as it is, you're going to come up short. So I need you to get weird with it. And I can trust no one in modern music more to get a little weird with it than I do with Black Midi. It would just, their instrumental palette is so bizarre. I feel like they would make several indulgences in this song that would they would probably double its length, and it would be super proggy and jazzy and John Zorny and weird, and I think it would be dope as fuck, frankly.
Can't fault it. Yeah, Black Midi, I think, are they're an easy band to pick because it's actually not that difficult to imagine this actually just happening anyway. Like they
Yeah,
could just do this anytime. They could cover a Talking Heads song anytime, and it would not
they've
be.
covered King Crimson and Taylor Swift. Like they can do anything.
Morgan, who did you pick for Once in a Lifetime?
Again, in the sort of strain of the biggest songs being by perhaps more unconventional artists who would do something really interesting with it, I went with perhaps the most idiosyncratic man in metal, Devin Townsend. Um,
Yo, yes.
because like he may very well turn that into like a casualties of cool type of deal, as likely as that is to be like a huge like Devin Townsend project esque song.
I actually had Devin for Swamp. Was my first
Yeah.
pick for him before I went down
Also
the
good.
drones pathway. Because you
Hmm.
gotta hear his voice doing that, man. But yeah, no, I think Devin would like slay the shit out of this. It would be incredible. My pick is again more so than before with the Blue Nile. Here it's like specifically a particular era of a band. I don't think that this band would do a good job covering this song now because they lack a core member who would be so essential to making it work. But my pick for Once in a Lifetime is like late 90s, early 2000s Slater Kinney.
Leader Kenny,
I
I
think
fucking knew you were gonna say it.
they would
That's a good
crush
pick.
this. Corin Tucker and Carrie Brownstein together would absolutely destroy this. Janet Weiss would hold
Just
the whole thing together.
yowling,
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I would just I
hooting and
was
hollering.
Rem.
yeah. I think that would
Hmm.
that to me, yeah. I was once I thought of this, I was like, this is getting etched into my list. No one is replacing this.
Hmm.
That would be so dope. Um, I would really like if they did that. I would really like if they just got Janet Weiss back.
Yeah, I'd like it if they were
Sis.
good again.
Yeah.
Be nice.
Anyway, all right. So now we go to, of course, the only song on Stop Making Sense that is not a Talking Head song. It is, of course, a Tom Tom Club song.
What a Day That Was is technically not a Talking Heads song.
Oh, is it
That's just a
not?
David Byrne. It's just a David Byrne
Yeah.
song, which
Wow,
makes it extra funny in that segment when I'm like, this is probably my favorite Talking Heads song.
I was thinking to myself, that's a bold pick. But I thought it was a Talking Head song
That's a 10
first.
out of 10 song on
I
here,
thought it was a
anyways.
Yes.
non-album track. Um, Genius of Love gets, I feel like, a bad rap. And I always like hear people saying, oh, it's the weak
Yeah.
moment on Stop Making Sense. I'm like, bro, you shouldn't be allowed to watch this if you don't ride for Genius of Love. This song is dope as hell. I won't take sure, maybe it is the weakest on the album, but it's
No, I'm
cool.
not even going to give it that. I feel like Found a Job is the least essential thing on here, if I'm
Okay.
honest.
I really love Genius of Love. I love how silly and fluffy and lovable it is. I love all the goofy, teenage affectations that Tina and Chris bring to it. Um, Jake, who have you chosen for Genius of Love?
This is one of those picks where I know I'm probably going to get a little bit eye rolls just because it's I don't know. I feel like this is a basic pick, but it's for more reasons than just the inevitable pun of the title. My choice here, it's
You're
Boy
such a
Genius. My choice is Boy Genius for a couple reasons. Number one, vocal harmonies. I mean, like, fucking, come on, man. You can't fault me for wanting to hear these gals all teaming up to sing this particular song. Also, yes, there's a pun in the title. It's kind of cool. But also, lyrically speaking, I feel like this is pretty in keeping with some material that the girls would probably write. And you could make it something a little bit more straightforward, but in doing so, I think the transformation would be unique. It would be a nice, refreshing take on the song. And you can, since it's Phoebe, Julian, and Lucy, you could probably play a little bit with the lyrics, maybe change the lyric boyfriend to girlfriend, perhaps. Ooh, baby.
I feel like they wouldn't. I feel like they their whole thing is that they're boys, right? Um,
Could be.
Eh,
Look,
I
I ain't
just want
them.
to know. I just want to know which boy genius is going to sing James Brown, James Brown, James Brown. He's still the godfather of soul, y'all.
Lucy Dacus, without
I
hesitation.
had to restrain myself from in the intro to that of being like, if this motherfucker says boy genius.
Look, I warned you ahead of time.
Yeah. No, look, I respect how unhinged of a choice that is for this song. I genuinely, that's not a backwards compliment.
Three white bitches on Genius of Love.
Morgan, what did you pick for this song then?
I went with Janelle Monáe because her last album was
Ooh.
funky and horny, and this song is funky and horny.
Uh-huh.
And I don't need to explain myself that much. That just sounds cool.
I thought of Janelle Monáe for this as well. I went with a different one though. I went with a more sideways pick again here. The I went with Geese for this one. I think that if you've ever heard a
Boomst.
Geese song, Morgan, I don't think that you probably haven't, but if you ever do listen to Geese, you hear the singer of the song and the way that he sings those songs, and you'll get what I mean. He's a ridiculous vocal performer, and I think that they would absolutely turn this into a strutting, sort of, again, parquet courts-esque, punky thing that would just be utterly ridiculous. It's not that he sounds like any Tina or whatever. Definitely not. It's just that it's this the kind of person you're like, this person should cover a Talking Heads or Talking Heads adjacent song. And I thought the funniest possible song for Geese to cover would be Genius of Love. Kind of
Mhm.
partly inspired by the fact that they recently covered Justin Bieber's Baby, which I was just like, it's one of my favorite things that's happened this year because it's so fully committed to covering Justin Bieber's Baby in the style of Geese. So yeah, I wanted to
Aw.
get them on here. Let's move on to Girlfriend is Better, a classic Talking Heads song, another one of my favorites off of Speaking in Tongues. I like how every time I've tried to remember the title of Speaking in Tongues, I've forgotten it. It's taken like 5 seconds to go, Speaking in Tongues. I always forget that title for some reason. Um, Girlfriend is Better. I got a girlfriend who's better than that.
It's
Jake,
better than that.
who'd you pick
Um,
for this song?
this is probably the pick that I'm the least secure about because I have no doubt that in this band's prime, they would crush this. However, this choice band a little bit past their prime, but I wanted to give them this just because I feel like it still excels where they would still excel, where this is a slightly like sillier, more tongue-in-cheek song, but it also, interpersonal relationship kind of deal. I went with Block Party for this one. Obvious like rhythmic drive. It's also something I can just easily picture Kelly singing about and whatnot. It feels like the effort required to translate it into a Block Party song would be very minimal, but also fundamentally so different from the original that it would just be worthwhile. So it's a bit of a basic pick just because I feel like, again, Block Party could probably cover half of the songs on here, at least, Silent Alarm era, Block Party could.
I
But
can hear
yeah,
him.
this is my favorite pick for them, though.
I can hear him doing it in his voice. What do you know? Take you away. We're being taken for a ride again.
That chorus is just like that's such a like when Kelly writes choruses, I feel like Talking Heads has to be a huge inspiration just because it sounds like a hook he would write.
Yeah, I can hear it totally. I love that pick. And you can go particular. I already did the thing with Slater Kinney where it's like I need a particular era of the band. You can do that with Block Party too.
Matt
Uh,
Tong, please,
yeah.
not
Morgan,
optional.
Morgan, who did you pick for this song?
This is actually the modern era of this band that I was thinking of, but I went with Queens of the Stone Age for this.
Ooh.
Um,
That's a good one. That's a very good
they've
one.
been, I feel like they've been so preoccupied lately with the sort of making funk music theirs. You're just sort of doing it in their way.
Mhm.
Or even like as far as like an Era Vulgaris type of twist on this song, I
That's what I
think would be a
imagine.
lot of fun.
I can respect that 100%.
Is Josh Homme drunkenly slurring, I got a girlfriend who's better than that.
Better than that.
another one of those things where you could just imagine them completely reimagining what the song is
Yeah.
musically. This is my everything pick. This to me feels the
A great
most
pick.
like John Higgs would write this particular kind of song. And just the way that it's sung and the energy that it has to me screams a band like Everything. I could hear Alex doing that little synthesizer solo, that boom, boom, ba-da-ba-da-boom. I love this song I've always loved the song to pieces, and like everything covering this would be like fan service for me. So yeah, they had to go on here somewhere, and this is the one I picked for them. Next up is Take Me to the River, which I I also should probably retrospectively say is not a Talking Heads song. Who would you guys have cover this, Jake?
Another instance of what I alluded to earlier of, some elements of country music making it into Talking Heads' music. But I decided to veer less on that side of things and more on a kind of soulful, kind of bluesier maybe rendition of Take Me to the River. And I went with Alabama Shakes. Or Brittany Howard in general would also just be an amazing, hugely commanding vocal presence on here. I feel like the band would bring a kind of levity to the instrumental, a brightness and a kind of color, but they also wouldn't leave behind the things that make it kind of grittier and twangier. And again, listening to Brittany Howard sing fucking anything is an absolute delight. She would absolutely destroy the hook in this song. Little else to say other than the instant I thought of this pick, I was too happy with it. So it was like one of the first ones I went with.
Yeah, definitely can see that. Morgan, what'd you pick?
This was my block party pick. It's just really easy to imagine Kelly singing this song.
Take
And
me to the river.
He said sing.
probably a little more of his more soulful delivery on that, but I'm open to anything.
Sorry, I'm getting a lot of mileage out of that impression, I know.
Yeah.
My pick here, this is an artist that Jake picked for a completely different song, and I've gone with them for this song for, I think, similar reasons that Jake picked them for the song that Jake picked them for, which is just that it would kind of be perverse to have them do this song. And so my pick is Model Actress for this song.
Hell yeah.
I can just hear them doing this because again, it's a very repetitive song, especially the version Stop Making Sense, where they use it essentially as a, an exercise to kind of credit roll, sort of, thank the band, all that kind of thing. And I can just hear Model Actress driving the groove into the ground and just getting more and more unhinged with
Yep.
it as the song goes on. I could also hear Girl Band, was formerly known as Girl Band, now known as Gear Band, doing a similar kind of version on it. But I picked Model Actress because it's a little bit more podcore. Um, yeah, just a really weird, and there's nothing that pleases me more than the idea of a really raucous, queer, industrial punk take on this funk standard. So that's my pick for this one. All right, last song, Cross-Eyed.
I'm sort of cheating here by like semi having two, but I also had the thought of like Bone Machine era Tom Waits on this song, just
I had
dragging
Tom
it
for a
out.
couple, honestly. Yeah.
I did think of Tom Waits, but I couldn't assign him to the right song, so I let
Like
it
I thought
go.
of him for Swamp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just,
Okay, so
just
last
if
song.
you can think of a freak, put them on Swamp for this exercise that we're doing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Last song is, of course, Cross-Eyed and Painless from Remain in Light.
I just realized I was right when I guessed who Jake picked the Mars Volta for.
Yep, you sure were.
There we go. So, Jake, you want to explain yourself?
Jesus Christ. I mean, like it's a
Tell
lot
me
of
why.
your same reasoning. It's fucking it's the Mars Volta. They're never not going to put anything less than their entire pussy into it, which is exactly what this song needs. But it's just because it's such a strange, blurry, psychedelic song that I just imagine a band like the Mars Volta turning everything up to the highest possible degree of intensity. Like I want Bedlam and Goliath fucking the Mars Volta to do this song. I want this to be absolutely bug nut shit crazy. And this is the only song on here that I feel like allows them a template to reach for that stratospheric height.
I can hear Cedric doing the facts are etc. bridge of this song and his like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, ridiculously fast speaking voice. And yeah, I could hear them like turning it into like a Bedlam and Goliath style song too. That's that's deeply based. Morgan, who did you pick?
I went a similarly proggy route. I think this feels like the most proggy Talking Head song because it feels so Adrian Belew. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I went with sort of in the mind of like their Three of a Perfect Pair cover, but I went with Between the Buried and Me, who would do a similarly
Yes.
unhinged production of this song, I think.
Yeah. Bravo. I again, a lot of bands I thought of and then couldn't assign or just went with something else. And they were another one where I was like, yeah, Morgan will probably put them on one of these songs. I've gone with this is one of the most this is one of the biggest reaches, or at least one of the biggest like differences in terms of like what this band sounds like and the kind of music they make and what this song is. But I decided it would work and be kind of fun, and it's a kind of go for broke final pick for the album. And I also kind of picked them because I wondered if Jake would pick this band because they're a very Jake core band. But again, I think it's one of those things where this is such a bizarre pick that I completely understand uh, why it might turn some heads. But they have done some covers recently that surprised me, the fact that they could even do them. And so I want to give Imperial Triumphant a chance with this song because I
Yo.
specifically went and listened to their Paranoid Android cover, and I was like, this is so just what the fuck is this? And I
So
want to hear them
awesome.
cover anything because the way they do
Mm-hmm.
it is so fucking like it would not capture the vocal inflections whatsoever. It would be complete like it would just be full, you know, because the vocals are very kind of death metal growl vocals in that band. But just
Uh-huh.
the chops the band have, obviously the jazz sensibility that they possess as well, is not a million miles
Oh
away
yes.
from what Talking Heads work with. So I think that it would be again, I'm imagining this as an actual compilation album and thinking about like how it would play. I think ending with an Imperial Triumphant sort of jazzy death metal cover of Cross-Eyed and Painless would be out of this world. So that's my pick. And that brings us to the end of our fan cast for Stop Making Sense, the covers album. Now go ahead and enjoy even less than ever the real version of this because it's in no way going to shape up to what we have chosen. Let us know in the comments below who you would fan cast to cover any of these songs. What do you think of our picks as well? Whose album would you buy? Out of me, Jake, or Morgan,
Ooh.
whose album would you be most likely to buy? I genuinely want to know this. I'm very curious. Let us know in the comments below what you think of this exercise. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around. We'll be back again very soon to talk about new music and music news. But until then, rock over London, rock on Chicago, Verizon. Can you hear me now?